Hello and welcome to the video lesson on accuracy. My name is Dorian. I'm going to take you through some thoughts, ideas, strategies on drawing more accurately. I would like to start with this idea of focus glasses. What do I mean by focus glasses? So there's these different concepts: alignments, angles, measurements, implied lines, and creaturizing. That sounds like a lot, right? A lot of things to keep in your mind, but it's actually pretty simple. And the way I like to think about this, and the way in which I would encourage you to think about this, is as pairs of glasses that you can put on and look through. And while you are wearing the alignment glasses, for example, all you see about the world is the alignments. And I will explain what I mean in a moment. But these act like a filter. So you can look at the subject you're drawing, look at your drawing, compare, find proportional mistakes, and fix them. In the beginning, this takes effort. This takes your conscious mind. You have to think about thinking this way. But over time, as you practice, this becomes more and more part of your subconscious mind. And that's where mastery lies, where the piano player doesn't have to think about which key to hit with which finger. No, all of that is instantaneous, instinctual, automatic. The subconscious mind, muscle memory, is taking care of that. That's where I want you to get. But in order to do that, we need some smart practice methods. And as silly as it may sound, these classes can be very useful training wheels for a while. I explain this in more detail in the written PDF guide, so if you have access, take a look. Otherwise, let's jump into it. So alignments first. If we look at a model, or in this case a drawing, there's a lot of things we can look at. There's a lot going on. If we want to draw this model or make a copy of the drawing, there's a lot that can go wrong, right? In order to simplify our vision, let's put on the alignment glasses. So if you have a flat surface in front of you, a table or something like that, visualize those glasses sitting in front of you. Reach down right now with your hands, pick up the glasses, bring them up to your head. I know they're not there, they're imaginary, doesn't matter. Pick them up and put them on your head. You're now wearing the alignment glasses. And what we can do is scan across the image and look for things that line up. I've brought this horizontal line here so we can really see those alignments. And there's one right here. See where this point is formed? Is at the same height as this change of direction here. So these 2 points form a horizontal alignment. We can check if there's anything else here, almost where the foot overlaps, intersects the calf. That's a little bit higher, which is also useful to notice. On the front here, not really any distinct point, but we have 1, 2, and kind of 3 points on that alignment. The more you can find on one alignment, the more useful that is. Of course, the whole base, the bottom of the leg, the top of that base that the model is sitting on, that's forming an alignment. All these points on that continuum are aligned. And if we bring this up again, we can look in the front as well if there's anything there. And not quite, but this knee is almost on that alignment as well. And that's useful to know. If we were to make a copy of this drawing, we can check the same alignment here as well. So the base down here and that knee needs to be higher than this alignment. Of course, this works the same way vertically, not just horizontally. So let's scan. As we hit that knee, we can check if we hit anything else. The toe, not quite. Maybe that tip of the hair, almost. So if you draw the same thing, I'll do it very roughly. very badly. But this knee, that forms an alignment, so this lock of the hair has to come out and it has to match. It has to work with the alignment. I've looked at this specific drawing a lot, so I know some of them. For example, the front of the face here, that cheek, lines up with the knee, which lines up with the shin bone. And then at the foot, it kind of intersects, cuts those toes in half. Can also be useful. We keep going. Where the shoulder and the neck intersect. This is a little bit to the left. That change of direction of the knee and the overlap of the calf and the foot behind it, and then change of direction again from the heel to the foot. So now we have 1, 2, 3, kind of 4, 5. And I guess there's one here, changing directions. So it takes some practice to notice them, but the principle is very, very simple. And I'm doing it digitally here. You can do this scanning across in your mind, or you can do it with a plumb line. A plumb line is just a string with a weight attached to it. And you hold that up in your line of sight between you and the subject you're drawing. That works for vertical alignments. If you need to do horizontal alignments, you can stretch the string horizontally. We're pretty good, we humans, of judging whether something is perfectly horizontal. So if you hold out the string in front of you and then scan up and down, you can do that. Or you can use a knitting needle, which is a useful measuring tool I'll talk about in a moment. That's up to you. Okay, let's take off the alignment glasses, put them on the table in front of you, pick up the angle glasses and put them on. With the angle glasses, we're looking at a subject and we're trying to simplify part of the image into a straight line. And every straight line we draw has a specific angle to it. If I draw a line here and I want to draw it again, that's not well done, right? That's off. Let me try again. That looks much better. And I'm trying to match the angle between the two lines. So on your subject, look for places that can be simplified into straight lines of a specific angle, such as this arm. If I draw that arm, I can look at the angle and try to replicate it so that those two match. Same for this arm. It is at a specific tilt, specific inclination or angle. So if I draw it, not so good, right? You can see that immediately. Should be more vertical. Something like that. With your angle glasses on, that's what you're focusing on. The simplification of complex shapes into straight lines at specific angles, and whether those angles that you see match the angles that you draw. So it's another way to find proportional mistakes and make your drawing more correct. Third one, measurements. So take off the angle glasses and let's put on the measurement glasses. With the measurement glasses, we can do a number of things. One of the most useful is this. Find the same measurement several times in the same subject. This is very important, very useful. Find the measurement and find it several times within your subject. So here we have that distance from the top of the shoulder down to the bottom of the leg. That distance is the same as the distance from the tip of the knee here to the back. So we found the same measurement 2 times. Now 2 is good, 3 is really good, and 4, anything above, is fantastic. So don't settle for 2, find 3. And here we have the bottom of the foot to where the knee changes direction, right here. That's the same measurement again, so we found it 3 times. If you can do that, you have something that will tell you a lot about your drawing. So if we were to make a copy again of the drawing on the left, we can now check that relationship. The measurement will be shorter, smaller, but the relationship is still true. That still works. Now, if you're working side size, meaning your drawing is the same size as your subject, and do a web search if you're not familiar with the concept, very useful. If you're working side size, you can of course just compare directly. Take a measurement on your subject and bring it over to your drawing. That's the whole point of side size. But in addition, you can use that recurring measurement as well. By the way, pro tip, find recurring measurements that are both horizontal and vertical. If your recurring measurement is always vertical, you could be distorting all your verticals. But as soon as you mix it up and you find the same distance also horizontally, you'll have a great way to check that there is no stretching going on in either direction. So, a few thoughts on measuring. First of all, make sure you have good posture. That means, let me sketch that here. We have an artist. Let's give him a beret. Arm stretched out. Here's the hand, and here's the measuring tool. Maybe there's a model over here. All right. Lock your elbow. That's quite important. Elbow locked. Shoulder locked. And what you want to create here is a line of sight that's at right angles to your measuring tool. So here, straight up, your line of sight is coming in at a right angle. If your pencil, your measuring tool is tilted forward, you're going to get in trouble. That's what's happening on the right here. This hand, we have pencil straight up, just like this. And this hand over here, that's where the pencil is tilted. Look at the difference in the measurement. That's half the measurement, lost, gone. Your drawing is going to be very distorted if you don't pay attention to your posture. And that's caveat number 1. Caveat number 2 is that in my experience, and there was a period where I was quite obsessive about measuring, but in my experience, almost all measurements are off by at least a few millimeters. Let me say that again, because we're talking about measuring and we're looking at all these strategies, but bottom line, measuring is dangerous because most likely the thing you're measuring and the pencil mark you're putting down on your page is not going to be right. You will have to refine it later. So my rule of thumb is to measure only big stuff and to focus most of your measuring early on in the drawing process. What do I mean by only measure big stuff? If we have a portrait, for example, beautiful, I know. Let me just sketch a little head here. So, big stuff here would be maybe top of the head to the bottom of the chin, left to right, the width of the head, and then just a few things to place main features. So the bottom of the nose maybe, which will be related to the bottom of the ear, the distance between the front of the face, the ear, and the back of the head, and then maybe the same with the eye. But that will be it. Those are big relationships. I am not going to measure the height of the eyeball, not going to measure the width of the nostril. Those are details. Those things are taken care of by my eye. I'm only using a measuring tool to get those big things established, which is also why I want to do most of my measuring early on in the process. So if I have my drawing surface here, I'm drawing this portrait, I'm doing top, bottom, left, right, and then place those major landmarks. Eye, ear, nose. From that, I can flesh out the rest pretty well. and I'm not wasting time measuring small things. And most importantly, I'm training my eyes, because ultimately we don't want to become dependent on a measuring tool. Not at all. We want to be free. We want to draw like a jazz musician plays the saxophone, right? We don't want to look down on the keyboard every time we play a note on the piano. We want our fingers to know where they need to go. And this takes some practice. And what I'm telling you here, this whole video, this whole guide, is about smart ways to practice. All right, that was my little rant. Let's continue. What else about measuring tools? It helps if they are pointy at the tip. So it can be a knitting needle, it can be a pencil, it can be a paintbrush, but if it's a paintbrush, I would turn it upside down. So the hair is actually at the bottom and you have the pointy part at the top. It's just easier to align it to, let's say, that top of the head on someone's face, right? You want that tip of the pencil to be very precise so you can find that point. So it should be pointy at the tip. It should be not too thick. That helps. If you use a knitting needle, a concern there is also that it may bend just from your fingers. So if you'd like to use a knitting needle to measure, and I do, get something like a US size 6 or a metric size 4. I think that should be fine. Thick enough so it's strong enough for you not to be able to bend it with your fingers, and also still thin enough and light enough to handle with ease. All right. Next up, implied lines. Let's take off the measurement glasses, put them on the table again. Look at the implied lines glasses. Pick them up. Feel their weight in your hands and put them on your head. All right, the implied lines glasses are quite interesting. They may open some new doors for you in your artwork even. Looking for implied lines can help us find proportional mistakes or establish the basic proportions very quickly in a gesture drawing. So here is an underlying flow of the drawing. How do you get to that? It's actually quite simple. What you do is you look at the whole drawing kind of broadly and you start to notice lines that flow through the whole drawing. In this case, one that's quite obvious to me is this arm. If we follow that line, it flows through the legs, it's picked up in the fabric, and then it continues in the calf. And if you like, you can even continue it into the foot and it swoops out this way. Up here, we can just go up straight, or we can go take a right turn. That's up to you. There's no right and wrong with these flow-through lines. But we know now that many of the great masters we admire have used this device to give their images a underlying harmony and stability, feeling of things are where they are supposed to be, by using these flow-through lines or implied lines in their compositions. But they also, especially on the human body, they occur spontaneously. So look for them. They can be very helpful. And if we have the implied line glasses on, that is all we're looking for, right? So let's see if we can find something else here. The other side of the arm, to me, flows down through the legs again into the calf. Then it kind of merges with the other line. You could say it continues here, but I'm not sure what's happening down there, so I will just make it merge. There's also this line continuing down here. Less obvious maybe, but still there for me. Front of the face, if we go down, we merge into the front of the leg here, the knee, and then we go down and out. Also here, feels like there's a connection here. So identifying these implied lines can be another tool for you to place things in your drawing. The final pair of glasses, maybe the most fun one, I call it creaturizing. So let's take off the implied line glasses and pick up the creaturizing glasses, the rubber duckies, and let's see what they do. with the creaturizing glasses on, I can't help but notice that there is one eye, two eyes, and a mouth down here. And this lady is kind of stroking its nose. The other lady is touching its mouth. And we have something like a head happening here. I hope you can see that. So if I was to draw this whole painting again, I can just draw that creature. I can draw the eye, the second eye, the mouth, the head, and yes, it's more complicated than that. But seeing this abstract something else than what it is can really help with drawing proportions. For me, finding letters of the alphabet can also be very helpful. So down here, there's a B with a very thick belly. So the opening would be there. So to draw that B again is much, much easier than to draw the outside of the hand. There's a lot happening in the fingers, the hand, a lot of anatomy, but if I draw the B, I can look at the specific shapes of that B, and that's much, much easier to replicate. Another example here, we have a negative shape, so the shape, the background outside the hand, and this looks like a sea lion or a dog, maybe some animal. That would be the eye, the nose. I hope you can see that. And this works very well in negative space, around objects, but also in shadows, shadow shapes. So maybe this one could be an airplane, part of an airplane, flying this way. It's all up to you, to your imagination. And it's very similar to looking into the clouds and seeing dragons and faces and creatures, messages. Anytime you can look at a shape and give it a name as something else, something other than what it is in the picture, you have created a great shorthand for drawing that shape. I hope this makes sense. Give it a try. It is also great fun. So there you have it. Alignments, angles, measurements, implied lines, and creaturizing. All of these are also on the cheat sheet, accompanied by a set of good habits. And I wanted to take a moment and explain what they mean. Big picture. Step back to take a look at your work from a distance. This is a reminder to get some distance. Look at your work from far away, so you're not distracted by the small details. You see the big shapes, big proportions. That can be a huge help. Use a mirror to turn your images upside down, to allow your eyes a fresh look at the picture, because over time we get used to our own mistakes. Flipping the image, mirroring it, turning it upside down and working on it upside down for a while kind of resets your brain, and you'll be able to spot mistakes much, much faster. Squinting simplifies the image, and you'll also be able to see shadow shapes more clearly, which will help you to identify all of the things we're looking for: alignments, angles, measurements, implied lines, creatures. Squinting affects all of those, so it can be a powerful tool to use. Taking a photograph can also be useful, just with your phone, with your camera, and looking at the photograph itself after you've taken it can sometimes be very revealing. I can't tell you how many times I've taken a photograph in order to post something or submit homework or send a client something, and once I look at the photo, I see the mistake. So I've built this into my workflow. Just every now and then, maybe once a day, every 2 hours, depends on what kind of project you're working on, take a photo, look at it, and see what you notice. And last but not least, take breaks. If you've done figure drawings, for example, over multiple sessions, you draw, take a break, you come back from the break, and you freak out because one arm of the model is double the width of the other arm. we become blind to our own mistakes. So it's smart to take breaks because actually it will save you time. You won't have to fix as many things in the end. And you get to have a cup of coffee or some water or, do some yoga, get your blood flowing. And I think that's it for the video lesson. Thanks for watching.